The famous Melody Maker, which has made so many bands, hasn't it? You answered the sign a wild young drummer wanted, which is what you're saying you pretty much were back then. It led you to meeting Brian, didn't it? The guitarist and principal songwriter in the band in the early days. Now I saw an interview with him, and I think I read an interview with him actually saying that meeting you was an absolute delight because it was someone that shared his musical ideas, and I'm guessing the feeling was mutual. Yeah.
Yeah, and it it was strange because Brian had a much better musical background than me. Mine was sort of quite limited, really, and but he had all the all the Stooges and the MC5 albums and everything. But there was we I think what we really shared was just this attitude for the approach we took to playing music, and that was where we kind of gelled. I think was in here's somebody who plays like I do. It's one of those things that's always really difficult to put into words and to explain, because unless you're one of those fortunate people that have that sort of experience and that kind of relationship with another musician. I mean, lots of musicians do. I'm not saying it's a rarity, but unless you have it, it's very difficult to kind of understand how it works. And we were on the same level, kind of musically. We could both play a bit, and we were there, but neither of us were sort of technical, or neither of us could have joined King Crimson or any of those kind of bands, which was what everybody was doing then. So, we sort of both found a place to get on with it.
Absolutely, and you found like-minded people, didn't you, with David and Captain as well? And another story that I heard was quite interesting was that
Yeah,
you used to randomly ask people if they'd be singers or if they were any good at singing to join the band. And one such person you once approached was a Sid Vicious. Is that true?
yeah, it is. It was. There were very few people that had the right kind of attitude,
Mm-hmm.
and we weren't really interested in finding anyone that was a singer as such. We wanted somebody that had a personality, and so there were very, very few people in London at the time. You'd go to a Pistols gig and there'd be maybe 15, 20 spiky haircuts, and the rest would be kind of normal pub rock music fans, and because in those days you didn't really go to see the band. You just went to your local pub and they'd have a band on, and if you liked that band, that was good, and if you didn't, it didn't matter, because you could go back the next day. So when you used to go and see the Pistols, there'd be Malcolm and Vivian and the usual sort of crowd, but there'd only be a few people that kind of had short hair and plastic trousers and and stuff. So when somebody like Sid walked in wearing this sort of gold lame jacket with his spiky hair and the paddle, it was like, he looks great, let's go and find out who he is. So we would just start talking to people and just figure out if they were up for doing it. Because it's not really about being a good singer. It's about knowing what you are and knowing how you can sing it. If you look at Joey Ramone, Johnny Rotten, neither of them had voices that you would claim as being great voices, but they were them, they were their personality, and they knew how they could deliver what they wanted to say.
So how did you meet up with David then? Because in the end, he became the front man, didn't he? And like you said, he had the personality and the charisma and everything to carry the group as well.
Well, I met Dave through Malcolm McLaren, and Malcolm wanted me to do something kind of musical,
Mm-hmm.
and put a band together. That was kind of where he was coming from. So I'd met Dave around Eleanor Troy's house, flat, and we kind of Malcolm sort of put us together in a band called, which was Masters of the Backside. It was called. There was another singer who was also called Dave Zero, who was the complete opposite of Dave Vanian. He was like blonde, slightly effeminate, a bit chubby. You know, he was kind of, but had this incredible wit about him and sort of sparkle. And so Malcolm's idea was to have these two opposites front in the band. And Chrissy was going to play guitar, but he wanted her disguised as a boy. And she wasn't going to do any singing. And I think, yeah, I got Captain along to play bass. And we never really, we never did anything, maybe 4 or 5 rehearsals or something, and that was about as far as it went. And then I'd sort of decided that, Brian and I had decided we were going to make a go of a band. And then Dave was there the same night at the Pistols gig that Sid was there. And he walked through the door and, Brian said, "Oh, wow, he looks really good," and go and talk to him. It's like, no, I know that guy already, he does things. So, yeah. And the rest is history.
The rest is history. And the last of the original lineup to join was Captain, but you obviously already knew him. You two kind of went back a bit further, didn't you?
Yeah, we were, what did they used to call us? What was our technical name? But basically we were cleaners at Fairfield Halls. Porters, they used to call us. And we were cleaners at Fairfield Halls, and I'd started working there. And yeah, that's how I met the Captain. And because we were similar age, and he, we were both into music and stuff, which was, which made it easier to be mates. So he had a bass and an amp. And so when we'd got Dave, Brian and I decided that, we get the Captain in because kind of he fitted the bill, and he was a mate, and he was, an unusual personality.
yeah, that's one way of putting it. I've met him a couple of times myself. Yeah, definitely. Just moving then forward, I spoke to Steve Diggle from the Buzzcocks, and he refers to everybody in the scene as the School of '76. I mean, what was the scene like for you? I mean, it was obviously coming. You've mentioned like to prog and everything with the musicianship and over the top, and then obviously disco and funk and all that stuff was going on. What was the scene? What did the scene mean to you then around that time?
What, the punk scene or the music scene?
The punk scene. I mean, the burgeoning movement as it
was small. There weren't many people, and it was really driven by Malcolm and Bernie. That was, they were the catalyst for the whole thing. And I think they worked out that if they could have 3 bands with the same kind of approach and message, then, it'd be a movement. And therefore that was kind of what they were trying to put together. I mean, I'm not saying none of the other musicians or bands would have ever existed without them, because, one of the interesting things about punk is it was actually happening on its own, without much involved. Like the Saints in Australia, the Stranglers were sort of quite happily working away as the Stranglers. The Jam were doing, and none of them were really about London. Eddie and the Hot Rods were kind of on the circuit, and it wasn't about Malcolm, but they were the kind of ones that sort of pulled the London scene together, if you like. And so when the Pistols would play, those of us that sort of wanted to be involved, would always go down and see them.
So, and we talked about Malcolm. I mean, what's your memories of now the now infamous, ill-fated Anarchy in the UK tour? What was your memories of that now?
Well, it was politics really, and money, and it was about sustaining the Pistols as as being Malcolm's band and the band. I mean, to be honest, we were only on the tour because the Damned had been out working live for quite a while, and we'd built up a pretty big audience, and they had to have us on the bill to sell tickets. It was really as cut and dried as that. And then they did the Grundy show, and of course they didn't need us anymore to do it, so it became let's get rid of the competition.
That's one way of putting it. And then just moving forward, we've talked a bit about the punk and everything like that. We've dwelt on that, but you guys, you made records to please yourselves, didn't you? Obviously, the band members and things changed over many years and things like that, but you veered away from just the fast kind of emotional punk. You ushered in a darker scene, and there's the Black Album, Strawberries, Phantasmagoria. The band evolved, didn't it?
Yeah, well, we were always aware of our harshest critics, who used to say that, you know, really we were just a three-chord punk band, and you know, that was kind of all we were capable of. But we had a bit of a dilemma as well, because we didn't know how the audience would react to a different kind of musical approach. So we were very lucky that the audience were sort of growing with us, if you like, and they were ready to move into something with, you know, there was more subtlety, there was more things going on, and you know, at least four chords.
And is that the secret behind the longevity, do you think? The evolution?
The audience going with us, certainly. But I think once we'd realised that, and that really, you know, we got over the sort of your 15 minutes, you know, in 1976, 77. And then we realised that we could progress and our audience would be sort of kind of okay with that. Then the floodgates were open, you know, we could do anything we wanted, and we did. I suppose it was probably, you know, it was a brilliant freedom working in the Damned. I don't know if many people know that, but actually when you were in the studio and you were putting an album together, everybody's idea was valid. Everybody was kind of free to chip in with whatever they wanted to do, or, you know, and it was an incredibly open thing. I think that's one of the reasons to make the record sort of different, is that that isn't the way that most people work. You know, they usually, you know, we never had a Damned identity, if you like. It wasn't, you know, like many bands always have a certain sound and a certain look to them, to what they do. And the Damned never really did that, apart from one of this just sort of chaotic characters up on stage.
You seem to come alive there when you're talking about the different. I mean, what was your favourite era of the band then?
It's really tough, because there are so many different kinds of good that were going on, like being creative, and that was very much the kind of Machine Gun Etiquette kind of era, I think. And then, but we did apply the same rules when we went on to Phantasmagoria and Eloise and that whole kind of thing. So we were, you know, it's a tough one to say which was the best bit, you know, because there were a lot of good bits in all of it. Not always good, but generally speaking.
And how do you feel? Because I speak to different people, and you mention the name The Damned, and you get people coming back going, "Oh yeah, the punk band," and then you'll get other people coming back saying Eloise. I mean, there's not many bands that can split people like that.
No, it was very difficult live, you know, because you'd have all the kind of punk rockers up the back waiting for you to do neat, neat, neat. And then there'd be the sort of what I used to call the Vanian dollies, you know, waiting for us to do Shadow of Love. And so there'd be a shift in the audience, you know, between the front rows, depending on what songs we were playing. So it was strange. And I don't know how many Vanian dollies got into the first album or the earlier stuff because of it. They were exposed to it. And I don't know how many hardcore kind of punk rockers got into, you know, Phantasmagoria, but there was a crossover, and it was, you know, one I was very grateful for.